So I think we're about ready to kick this off. We have a really interesting topic to get through today with two amazing guests. So let's get into it. So thank you everybody so much for joining us today as we discuss how to select the right accounting apps for your firm, a topic that's incredibly apropos in this growing ecosystem of applications. I believe that only in the Xero app marketplace. Brooks, how many applications do you guys currently have on the Xero app marketplace?
Yeah, we're currently over 700 apps now, just past that major milestone.
That's incredible. So with over 700 apps in the Xero app marketplace alone, it can become increasingly challenges to understand and identify what the right cloud accounting apps are for your practice and for your clients. And that's going to be the topic that we're going to be diving into a little bit deeper today. So my name is Jeffrey Golano. I am one of your co-hosts for today's webinar. I am the Director of Marketing at Hubdoc. My role at Hubdoc is to be the voice of the customer internally and to work with the marketing team to be the voice of the product and the company externally. Really excited to be joined today by Brooks from Xero and Kenji Kuramoto, who is our industry expert from Acuity. Do you guys want to give a quick introduction?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Brooks Arbogast. And as Jeff said, I manage our strategic partnerships here at Xero with our app partners. So those are our ecosystem partners that you would find on the marketplace. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and kind of discuss with you guys and Kenji on app selection. So Kenji.
Yeah, and I'm Kenji. I am the CEO of Acuity. We are an outsourced accounting firm. We provide everything from fractional CFOs and fractional controllers to a virtual bookkeeping solution. We are partners with Xero and with Hubdoc and use their tools extensively. And so we're about an 80-person firm now, headquartered out of Atlanta, Georgia, with kind of team members working all over the US. So my goal here is to kind of share some experiences to how we today kind of go and evaluate apps for our firm, but it can even kind of talk back to when we were scaling a little bit smaller, how we approached it then too. So glad to be here with everybody.
Thanks, Kenji and Brooks. I think this is a great panel for today's discussion. We have Hubdoc, who is an application on the Xero app marketplace. We have Brooks from Xero, who are the owners of the Xero app marketplace. And you have Kenji from Acuity, who has a ton of experience navigating the app marketplace, selecting the right applications for his practice and for his clients. So excited to jump into today's topic. But before we get into it, probably worth it to talk about a few webinar housekeeping notes. First and foremost, this session is being recorded, so we will send that to each of your inboxes post-webinar, so keep an eye out. Second, ask questions throughout the webinar. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so we'll try to answer any and all questions at the end of the webinar. And last but not least, because we are streaming video, we suggest that you close any unnecessary applications. That'll make sure that you have the best possible viewing experience. So without further ado, into today's topic. Some of the things that we're going to discuss in today's webinar, first and foremost, tips for identifying your firm's technology needs as well as your clients' technology needs, best practices for discovering and vetting applications throughout the over 700 apps on the Xero app marketplace, and last but not least, how to select the right accounting apps at your firm. So Kenji, let's just dive right in. We're going to jump into the app selection and evaluation process. I'm curious to know what comes first. With over 700 applications on the marketplace, do you start to test and evaluate applications before you've identified a need, or do you first identify your need and then start digging in the app marketplace?
Well, I'll say it's a good question. I've done a bit of both. In fact, like I really enjoy the new technology that's coming out in the accounting and financial space. I tend to be a little bit of a, oh my gosh, that's cool, and go geek out, and I'll end up like looking at all these different apps. And I think that was our approach back when we were a little bit smaller. We just find a cool app and try to figure out cool ways to use it. And I think that can work. I mean, I certainly would recommend that firm owners, I mean, if you have an interest or you're trying to develop that interest, just go out there and test things out and try them out. What we experienced, however, though, was as we got a little bit bigger, we had to be a little more intentional in that. We had to be like it didn't work. Let's say I came back from a conference and I had just totally geeked out on a couple of different apps, and I'm like slamming them into clients and into different environments. And all of a sudden, team members are just kind of like, I don't understand what's going on. What is this new tool? And so we've had to slow it down a little bit. Not to say slow it down, but we had to be more methodical, more intentional with like, okay, let's really try to work up some use cases and go out and find solutions. So now we've become a little more diligent as we've gotten bigger. We want to make sure that team members and clients are aligned with what we're doing, to go look for any kind of apps that may affect or impact positively our team members and the way they work. So some of those tools might just, clients may not interact and use them, but we do as a firm to be more efficient. Or if we see any recurring customer needs across our client base, as we said, we got to find a better way to handle this particular issue. So then we'll go take that and then go take a look for, are there solutions out there that could address this? I mean, candidly, I was just out in Los Angeles last week and saw a bunch of the Xero and Hubdoc folks out there. And I do love walking around and seeing, the trade show and seeing all the different, apps out there. But we've had to be a little bit more diligent, certainly, as we've gone along.
I think that's a great point, and it comes back to the age-old adage: what comes first, selecting applications or outlining and defining your workflow, and then fitting the applications within the workflow. And I think you speak to that quite elegantly. It could sometimes be easy to get distracted by kind of the shiny new toys, but bringing it back down to the core needs for your practice and for your clients typically is the right way to go about selecting the apps that are the best fit.
That's right. Yep.
And you had made mention that you as the CEO of Acuity are the one that frequents events, and you kind of get excited about new applications. Is there anybody else at your practice who's kind of in charge of identifying what are the right applications for your practice?
Yeah, I think I've kind of passed on that torch a little bit. I really do think it's important, and for anybody who's on the webinar who's a firm owner, it really helps your team members if you're trying to modernize the practice and use new tools. I mean, really, you as the firm owner should try to be engaged in this process. I think it can be very helpful. My experience has been I had to limit myself a little bit. There's a time when I can go too overboard and I'm no longer being helpful. I'm being a distraction to everyone else. So what we've done at Acuity as we've grown a little bit is gotten some different team leads. So across those teams I mentioned, CFO, controller, bookkeeping, we have some amazing team leads we put in place. And so if a particular client pain point that we're looking to address pops up in one of those teams, what we typically do is designate that team lead. And our team leads at Acuity, they're not out working directly for clients. They're kind of supporting their bookkeeping team, the controller or CFO team. So the responsibility kind of falls on them to go out and help do the evaluation. So for us, I guess at Acuity, it really depends on where that need arises, out of which team predominantly, and we let that team lead kind of take the leadership role and kind of help do that app evaluation. But I still love to be involved with it. I like sitting in on those meetings when we're evaluating things and putting different apps through their paces. So I'll probably always will be involved. I just try to be less disruptive than I probably have been in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings me to my next question. So you had mentioned that you have multiple team members who are kind of business unit managers and owners who do their own app evaluation for their own business needs. Do you ever have them working simultaneously, trying to identify applications and integrate them into your workflow, or do you typically, select an application and implement it one at a time?
Yeah, that's been also kind of a bit of an evolution for us as well too. I mean, I think maybe you'll see there's a trend with us is that probably as we've gotten bigger, we've had to get a little bit more focused and a little bit more intentional. Now we try to make sure we prioritize that we're only kind of doing one of these, assessments and kind of implementations at a time. And it's partially because we've developed kind of a bit of a methodology for how we go in and take a look at apps. And if we're going to do it right, there's a lot of different pieces. There's a lot of different team members to get involved. There's some different testing that we like to put apps through. And I think we've realized that trying to do too many of those at once is just too confusing. It's just too confusing. There's too much on someone's plate. So, I certainly think it's fine if you kind of maybe use a sandbox approach and just want to go out and try a bunch of things just to kind of get your arms around them. But if we realize that there is a customer need and pain point that we need to address, we do want to try to be as efficient as we can to find that solution. So we don't want to get too distracted Maybe if there's for example, maybe if we've got in our controller practice 10 different clients who are dealing with some issue from a payments perspective, and they're really feeling that, and maybe we've got one or two clients over on the bookkeeping side who would like to figure out if they can find a better inventory system maybe. We're going to try to prioritize where we can make the maximum impact quicker, and maybe where there's a little bit more of an acute pain point. So yeah, we like to try to go at least take down at least the low-hanging fruit if we can first before we start going after other areas.
Yeah, love the prioritization and the sandbox approach. Kind of continuing on that thread, once you've evaluated what the low-hanging fruit is and what you're going to tackle first, how do you go about evaluating the competition around that specific use case? So one application versus another that solves similar problems.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly how we do it at Acuity. Once we figure out what type of tool we need, again, inventory, forecasting, whatever it might be, we try to get at least a lineup, this is just for us, of at least 3 different solutions. And we like to take a look at each of those and run them competitively. And so we'll do everything from running through them through demo companies, trying them out on our own organization ourselves. And then from there, we even, if all that looks good and hopefully we have at least one of them emerge as the front runner, what we'll then go do is once we've tested it out internally, is usually get kind of a beta group of clients and say, hey, listen, I think these are the ones, either the ones that have already expressed the need or ones that we see there's a need. We'll go out and reach out and say, hey, would you mind doing kind of a little pilot project, a little beta with us? And we typically will say, hey, well, if there's any licensing fees, we just say, hey, listen, we'll cover those for a little while if you don't mind. We want to try them out in your environment. We think this will help. Based on the success of that rollout, then we will go and do a larger rollout across our client base. So yeah, I guess that probably gets back to the last question you mentioned, Jeffrey, like why we try to now go a little bit more thoughtfully about doing one app at a time or one need at a time, because if we're kind of doing all that, running betas and doing some things with different small groups of clients, it just gets to be too much and we don't do it well. So yeah, with the competitive aspect is very important. We really like to see multiple competitors just to get a sense for what may work for our firm well, may not always work for other firms well, and vice versa. So, and our client base. So it's very good and very helpful to see others out there who are addressing some of the same needs.
It sounds quite like a robust process from a competitive analysis point of view. And I love the beta. It's very similar to what we do when we release a new feature, trying to identify if this is going to be something that adds value to our customers. And I like that you've taken the same approach from a professional services point of view. So I think that's incredibly interesting. You talked about the importance of prioritization because you're putting so much effort in the evaluation process. For the people that are viewing this webinar today, do you mind providing some tactical tips as to how you go about figuring out what are the top priorities and then working your way down?
Yeah, very first of all, we're going to try to address whatever the main pain point is, right? The solution's got to address at least what we've identified as the main customer need. And then at that point, all kinds of factors may come into an evaluation. The cost, we got to figure out whether it's something that's going to be at a price point that can work for our client base. From there, we're definitely getting into kind of the feature set side of things, which have the best features. And in many cases, sometimes the features are impactful to us as the accounting firm and maybe more affecting us. Sometimes we'd have to think about features. Well, let's look at the UI. Let's look at how this may impact the client. How are they going to interact with this? Is there a mobile app? Things like that. So we want to look at it from a user interface for both our team and our client's team. What we don't want to do, for example, is just say, hey, this is going to make, oh my gosh, the life of all of us at Acuity so much easier, but it makes it painful experience for the client at the end of the day. So we try to balance those perspectives out. And when we're also evaluating, we love to see things like good support programs. I would imagine most of the firms who are on here, if they're using some of these technologies combined with some of their team members, oftentimes the clients don't, they're looking just to get a problem solved. So they don't necessarily care if it's, if Acuity messed something up or if it's our app partner or one or the other. All they know is something isn't working. So what we really like to see when we're evaluating is a very strong support mechanism to where, okay, maybe something's not working out right. How can we as Acuity go back and quickly connect with the support, our customer success team back at the app partner to troubleshoot, to solve this? And so that's also very important for us too. So seeing partner programs in place that may have educational aspects to it as well too. Those are all things we like to factor in, when we're doing evaluation. I mean, first and foremost, we're always going to go after the one that addresses the client need most, but we want to make sure it's not just a point solution that helps at one point, that this ecosystem is evolving so quickly, and it's very likely the app is connecting to Xero and maybe even some other apps. So you're going to need to make sure there's an ongoing support, there's ongoing development team with that inside that app. So those are things to consider as well too, because again, the dynamics and the landscape of what's happening in our cloud accounting ecosystem is changing really quickly. So hopefully you find an app partner that can move along at the speed with all this change.
I love that. And I think it speaks to the concept of partnership. You had mentioned that you partner with Hubdoc and Xero, and we feel the same way, because you're 100% right. From a client perspective, if something is going wrong, whether it's on the application side and or on the practices side, we have to work together to come up with solutions that fit the needs of our clients. So I think that's brilliant. I love that answer. Cool. So I think that quite covers it for app selection and evaluation. I'm sure there's going to be some questions at the end of the webinar around this particular topic. But before we get into those, I'm actually going to pass the mic over to Brooks, who I do believe has some questions for you as it relates to app discovery and integrations. App discovery being extremely relevant to the Xero app marketplace.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. So Kenji, I was just curious, you mentioned a lot of really great ways to prioritize app selection and the process that goes into that. So to start, I was wondering, where do you go to discover those new apps? Like, we have a marketplace, there's events you mentioned where you saw Xero and Hubdoc, your network. Can you recommend how you go about that and where you kind of start to discover all of these?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, like you mentioned, Brooks, there's tons of places you can go to. And I think, again, a few years ago, this was a little bit easier just to do some Google research, or maybe you're getting CPE at a conference and you walk the booth, and you can kind of get your arms around everything. Like you mentioned earlier, you guys already have 700 different apps in the ecosystem, and I know that's growing very rapidly every month. And so it becomes very difficult to really just try to stay on top of everything coming out. So I think where things have evolved to is looking and using app marketplaces. And again, really your guys' Xero app marketplace, it really is excellent, because as someone who works on the Xero platform, we already know, one, that if it's on the app marketplace, it's an app that's already going to integrate well. You guys have already done some of the diligence for us at Acuity by saying, listen, we're only going to put people on the on the marketplace that work with Xero. So that's one. That's almost one way that we've helped kind of narrow down solutions to make them, do we know they're going to work with an accounting system that we work with? And then I think also you guys have some really great simple filtering mechanisms that I can go and look at the app marketplace by the type of tool I'm looking for. If I need to assess inventory solutions or invoicing solutions, I can quickly go do sorts based on that. Or I can go and say, hey, I've got a lot of clients who are are software companies or manufacturing companies. I can search by vertical, by industry type. So that kind of at least takes that huge ecosystem, which is well larger than 700. You guys have just narrowed it down by helping us to narrow it down, get it down to something manageable we can assess. And then beyond that, I think you can, there's some nice features to where I know there's ratings inside of the Xero app marketplace. You can kind of get a sense of how other firms and advisors like us have rated this. So that's everybody should be, as a practitioner, should be going there. That's a great first place to go and get some initial ways to hone down that huge ecosystem. From there, I really recommend, connecting with peers. I mean, that's going to be every practitioner you talk to. Once you get it narrowed down to a few, then you can really, really get out there and talk to other peers. That means a lot to all of us as practitioners. Like, what does my friend who has a firm out in California or Miami say about this particular solution? I was looking at, and I think there's places to go. There's some LinkedIn groups out there. There's some Facebook groups. I was just out on I think it's the Xero North American Facebook page, and saw people out there just the other day asking about different forecasting software, who's used these different timekeeping softwares. And so you'll see people respond really quickly. So for any firms who are on this, who are on there listening to us now, I really recommend just join that Xero North American Facebook group. And if you want to see a very lively discussion amongst people about what apps they're using, how they feel about them, that's a great place to go out and get some assessments from peers.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of really great ways to leverage the community and especially your network, kind of word of mouth as well. So on that note, if you've gone through the process to establish a few apps that you do want to evaluate, can you walk us through how you look at those at a high level? And do you prefer things like demos with those apps, or maybe a free trial where you're actually using it in your practice?
We'll do a bit of both. I know our preference. This probably is different for every firm. Our preference is to go ahead and just get a free trial of it. And no offense to the wonderful salespeople out there, but sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to get on the demo and maybe I'm going to get sold a lot. I'll step back from that and say that honestly, the more demos I've been on lately have been pretty good and deferent about that. Like, hey, let's just get you to know the app first. And then maybe there'll be some follow-up emails or calls like, hey, what do you think? Can we offer you those? But we at Acuity probably prefer to really get in and work live with the data. So if someone's got a free trial, we love using that. We love plugging it into our org or into Xero test orgs and just trying it out there. I would say that maybe if your firm has been more of a traditional firm and maybe you haven't tried out as many of these cloud tools, then probably the demo is going to be the way to go. I mean, that's probably a good way, because sometimes you can get a little bit lost in all this. There's a lot going on there. And so I would say use some of those resources at those companies to kind of walk you through it, ask questions while you're going through the demo. But I think once you get more comfortable with the tools and how they work, and with the app ecosystems, I think you're going to want to most practitioners are going to want to get their hands on the tool and use them themselves, see how transactions run through the system, see how things come through into Hubdoc and through Xero. You're going to want to see how all those things kind of play out together. But maybe start with a demo if your firm's a little bit newer, kind of in the cloud space.
Got it. Cool. So once you're in that demo period or the free trial period, you've talked about a lot of things to evaluate within the app, like their support, the actual need they solve for you that you were trying to find, the time and ease of implementation. So can you just talk to us a little bit about what do you consider and what's most important when selecting an app, whether it may be support, the cost, or the actual need they solve?
Yeah, I think the need, to me, a little bit the need they solve and the cost are almost those kind of initial hurdles that hopefully you figure out pretty quickly. Like those are through a diligence process, however you're gonna go about it, that hopefully at least you can kind of tick those things off. If you kind of don't pass like, there's no way we can afford this system, like, oh, it's meant for SAP or something like that. Like, okay, that doesn't work. I don't work with SAP or large companies. Or that it just, I thought the app did this and it doesn't, then you can kind of throw it out. But I think as you get into more like, okay, great, it looks like it solves the problem we need. Looks like it's not going to bankrupt us as a practice to implement this for clients or our clients. It's a little more nuanced, but I think we really lean more heavily on how do we feel like this relationship is going to go with the app partner. Everything from, I mentioned that support. I really strongly recommend any firm look at how good the support environment is. Everything from, do they have good FAQs, right? Is there a good, do I have a sense that when I send something in, I'm going to get a response back quickly? But even many app partners these days are coming up with, if you're an accounting firm, dedicated reps who are just there for the partner ecosystem. That's a huge win. I mean, not every app as they're starting can maybe afford to do that, but if they have that, that's a great sign. And you've probably got a really quick hotline directly into someone you can talk to about client issues. So that's usually for us at Acuity. Once we know it solves the problem and the price point is right, where we probably go first is get a sense of, if we're going to help solve clients' problems together, what's it going to be like working with this partner? I mean, really, we got to know that, because I mean, again, we spent a lot of time, we've been partners with you guys both you guys for a long time. We've problem solved things together quite a bit. We almost look at each other like extensions of your team. And so that's really where I think our clients are counting on us as firms to go. They don't, as nice as Jeffrey and Brooks are, sometimes they don't want to know like, great, Hubdoc, Xero, who are those guys? Hey, Kenji, I hired you guys at Acuity to help me with my accounting. I need you to solve it. I don't need the buck passed to somebody else. So that's really important, is that partner ecosystem. Some partners have even also added education. I think that's great as well too. It's education sometimes about the actual product they're selling, the app product, but then sometimes too you see it more extensible, just about where maybe the future of technology and the profession's going, different ways to bring accounting staff into kind of a more of a modern era. We really appreciate that as a smaller firm, and all of us are looking for ways to train up our staff. We love it when app partners have things like certification programs. We're certified on both your guys' platforms. We recommend that our team do certifications. We even give bonuses to our team members when they become Xero certified or when they do Hubdoc certification. So we think that's a small price to pay to kind of get them engaged in their career and in their profession. So there's a lot of ways I think that when we start really addressing and looking for who could become a good app partner, that beyond just the cost, once you get through that, and also addressing the need, really what's life going to be like working with this app partner and solving problems for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. You touched on a lot of the values that come with an app other than just the need that they solve and just the cost. I think cost is obviously important, but there's so much more that goes into it, which is why it's really great to talk to you today. And whenever we're evaluating new app partners for our ecosystem as well, we look at like the overall value that they can bring to your firm, because as we all know, it's really about the efficiency and the time saving as well, so that you can focus on the important advisory techniques that you wanted to have with your clients. So way more beyond once you've established that cost and what you can afford into everything you get as part of the package. So thank you for that. That's huge.
Yeah.
And so on that note, it'd be really interesting. We've talked a lot about how you select and what you look for. Could you give us a little bit of insight into what's actually in your tech stack and how regularly you kind of audit that?
Yeah. Well, there's for us, our tech stack is really dependent on the type of client. So we probably over the last 12 months have gotten much better about thinking in kind of an industry or verticalized way. And so we found that our tech stack is different based on the different types of clients we serve. In fact, I wish it was up. I'd point everybody to go take a look at it. You're welcome to, all my other fellow firms and practitioners out there, just take a look at how we did it. Our new website's launching in a couple weeks, so you can go look at it then. But you'll be able to look at all the different verticals we serve, and we actually will have down there, like, here are the different apps that we recommend in our app stack. So we do think they change a bit depending on the type of vertical we're serving. So I won't go through the full laundry list of all the different apps. We like to use a lot of them. But I guess from how we assess them, how often we change them, Brooks, we go through a process where we quarterly update our overall pricing, and we spend time as a team internally going through that. And at that same time, we also usually make some changes to that app stack. Sometimes that means new apps have emerged over the last quarter that we think are worthy of being, in our app stack. Sometimes maybe some have phased out. Maybe the support fell off, or we're not seeing the features updated as regularly, or we found some existing issues. Or price points tend to change in the apps quite a bit too. So we go through and make changes once a quarter. We meet actually monthly as a team to kind of assess what things we think we're going to roll out for, like, we've just kind of rolled out all of our Q3 pricing and all of our different app stack. We'll do the same thing going into Q4, and we'll meet a few times during the quarter just to kind of keep that front of mind as we see new things kind of emerge. I know I don't know if other firms are going through this too. We have not been very involved in like sales taxes, and with all that's happening right now in the world of sales tax and that coming and hitting e-commerce clients pretty hard, that's something we know, like, we're going to have to get our arms around that. We're going to have to dig in and have some better ideas about how we help clients who are now suddenly going to be faced with more sales tax issues than they thought. So that's an example of, we've got, I think, a meeting tomorrow on that, as like, let's take a look at some different solutions and get the ball rolling, so that hopefully we can emerge at the end of the quarter, rolling in the next quarter with, hey, here's for people on the e-commerce side who need to address sales taxes, maybe like they haven't before. Here's what we recommend in our app stack. So yeah, that's kind of the usual cadence in the way that we go about it.
Very cool. Yeah. So it sounds like even when you have your base tech stack, it's kind of a constantly evolving process based on the market and changes. So important to always be looking out for new updates to the marketplaces and such. So why would you say it's important to have an integrated tech stack as well, on top of just the apps that you're using, that they're all working and data's flowing together?
Well, I mean, I think the coolest part about having an integrated tech stack is if, I think I'm going to assume, again, most of us here are practitioners are serving the small, mid-sized business market. And the fact that with the way that we've gone to cloud software in the accounting space, and there's so many different apps now that are able to integrate one another, what that means from an opportunity perspective is that we're able to give a very, very small company a customized accounting solution, which is, it really is mind-blowing when you think about it. It's revolutionary in the sense that 5-10 years ago, I mean, who as companies did we know of that had a customized accounting solution? It would be, again, the Fortune 500s, the Fortune 1000s with these massive Oracle PeopleSoft implementations that go on for years and years and years. With the fact that developers and the software developers in the software company have opened up APIs and allowing other apps to connect to them, I mean, that gives us a lot of power to really bring great value to our clients, and that we can really recommend and say, hey, you're a small company, maybe you only have 2 or 3 people involved, you just started a year ago. We can actually, through the apps and their integrations, build you a custom accounting solution that fits exactly to your stage of life as a business and to exactly the type of company you are. So that's incredibly exciting. I just think that's awesome. It's not without its challenges. It means we have to stay up on top of all that's changing in technology. But I think it's just I think we sometimes underestimate the importance of that and what an impact we can have for our client base. That's very incredibly powerful by having these integrations. But again, it does mean that I think as a firm, you have to make a commitment to really get to know and evaluate the apps ecosystem. And also, it's not like the days of old where you know that you got a desktop software and maybe next year they'll ship you a new disk that you pop in, and like it might change next year, it might not. Like it's changing a lot quicker than that. So that's the thing that we have to do as practitioners, is just really make sure we're staying on top of the changes. But if we do, how cool is that to be able to give these small businesses a much, much better accounting function they ever had before?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I love how you touched on the piece of customization, and really being able to have a play for every vertical that you may manage is huge and provides that extra value to your clients. So it's a nice touch for them. So
yeah, I get a little excited. I get a little bit of evangelist mode on that one. Like I just think that's, I don't know if anybody else does, but I think it's just incredibly exciting that we can bring that benefit to small
because it's a huge offering for you guys. Yeah, so appreciate that. And so we'd hate to let you go without asking, we have Xero and Hubdoc both here. We'd love to just hear some of the advantages that you see in using both of us together, using Hubdoc and Xero.
Wait, do you guys integrate? Is that right? You guys actually
do, believe it or
not.
not.
Wow.
And then Kenji, as a follow-up, which one do you like better? No, I'm kidding.
Well, it all depends on who's got the better swag, right? Like,
so true. But in all seriousness, Hubdoc is a preferred partner in our kind of partner tiers in the marketplace. So I'd love to hear how that works for you.
Yeah, we love working with you guys. We have for quite a long time. The Xero Hubdoc integration has been incredibly beneficial for us as a firm. With the way that we are growing and scaling, we are looking for ways to keep our price points low for clients so that they can go in and get better accounting functions. And to do that, we're often looking for efficiencies of our staff. And the Hubdoc integration with Xero has been one of the areas we've found the most efficiency gains. Just because what once took like fetching a document from a bank or from a cell phone or utility, and then going and getting it, downloading it, uploading it, creating an image, uploading it, coding it all back into Xero. If you just think through all those different steps you literally had to go to get that, to now the fact literally that integration allows essentially for like a one-click match now of a charge maybe from a cell phone company or from a utility or from any other document. But now it's a one click, and guess what? I've got inside of Xero, I've got my bank statement in there. I've got my utility bill right there in literally one click. That's incredibly powerful. We think about how efficient that is for our team. That's been outstanding. So I encourage other firms who are listening to this who haven't maybe explored that efficiency gain for their staff, your staff. You as a firm owner, you as an employee or staff member there will really, really like how much time and effort that saves you, especially when you think across all your clients, all those bank accounts, all those connected accounts, that's a lot of time added up when you think about eliminating those steps. So that's great. We were incredibly excited this year when Xero, you guys announced that you were one of the first apps to go on to the Xero HQ, which I think when you're using HQ, and again, all firms out there who are on this who are using Xero should be using HQ, because it's another efficiency gain you can get by looking at all your clients and activities in one place. But now the fact that we can get alerts and notifications in a place that we're already managing all our clients in Xero HQ, but we're getting our Hubdoc alerts in there too, it's just, again, one more consolidated view. Staff are not bouncing around looking to see what's happening over in Hubdoc and what's happening in Xero. There's been thoughtfulness, there's been an intentional effort to kind of streamline things between Xero and Hubdoc, just to make the lives of us accountants a heck of a lot easier. So yeah, we're big fans. I know you guys brought me on here to kind of pump you guys up, but we use it quite a bit at Acuity, and it's really helped our team out quite a bit. So big fans.
No, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, and thank you for the truth in your answer. We just we love hearing supporters, and we do get a lot of good reviews for Hubdoc on our marketplace as well. So it's cool to get from someone that's first-hand experience. Cool. Well, those are all my questions. Really appreciate it, Kenji, and I'll pass it back over to Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Kenji. That was really amazing. I think just at a high-level overview before we jump into the Q&A section, Kenji, you spoke to it beautifully, so I don't need to go into it in too much detail. The only reason that I bring this up is because you talked about the ability to test out applications. That's exactly what we want to do here at Hubdoc. So this workflow that you talked about here, automatically fetching bill statements, invoices from over 700 connections, or uploading documents via mobile device, email, desktop, and having that seamlessly sync it to Xero. We offer accounting and bookkeeping practices free VIP accounts. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, I think that was I couldn't have said it better myself. So to jump into the question section, I think this is a really great question because it comes up time and time again. And Kenji, I'd be interested to get your perspective on it. But do your clients pay for the applications, or is it the practice that's paying for the application on the client's behalf?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we're a bit of both right now. And that is, it is confusing. It's a little challenging. Our preference is that we would like to pay for it on behalf of our clients. And in some ways, there's a couple reasons for that. One is we want a better, more streamlined experience for the client. I think people these days, I know I look at my credit card at times, and you get kind of almost this app or SaaS fatigue to where it's like, oh my gosh, how many little like $10.99 or $49.99 charges can I have on here? It gets tough. We want to try to accumulate that for them and let them see the kind of total cost of their accounting functions. That's just something we like to do at Acuity. So we typically like to bundle those things in. There are some apps though that are difficult to do that with, and that's probably something that should be assessed when you're looking at working with a client. I know plenty of other firms who say, you know what, I don't even want to get in the middle of that. I don't want to have to manage and think about like how many licenses do I need for my clients. So that's something to consider, because if you don't manage that correctly, it can be tough on you as a firm. But that is something you need to understand working with app partners, is which ones could offer either one of those. I mean, you see in some cases, it's fairly easy to where you can say, hey, listen, only these 5 I want to go ahead and bill directly, or I'll take the charge and bill them directly, or I want them to go ahead and pay for it. So some different apps have nice flexibility there. We as a firm prefer to go ahead and just do it all ourselves if we can and make the experience easier for our clients, but not every app partner offers that ability. Sometimes they haven't, maybe if they're newer apps, sometimes we find that they haven't really figured out kind of how to yet maybe build the, like I mentioned, Xero HQ. We can do that with Hubdoc as well too. They haven't kind of figured out how to do it across like a partner channel yet. So sometimes you find with an early app, they haven't kind of figured out how to do some of the partner billing quite yet. So we're a bit of both. Our preference would be to do everybody just bill directly through us. I hope that's helpful to whoever had the question. And I certainly, you guys see my Twitter account there. I would welcome follow-up questions, exactly how we do it, or specific ones. I'd be happy to share with you information on that.
I think it's also important to note that with some vendors in the ecosystem, there is a benefit to practitioners for paying on the customer's behalf. So, for example, with Hubdoc, we do offer wholesale pricing to accounting and bookkeeping practices. And I know that there are quite a few applications within the ecosystem that do the same thing. And then the practice has the opportunity to pass those savings off to their clients and or keep the savings on for themselves and include them in kind of their overall packaging. So
yeah, as a follow-up to that one, Jeffrey, this may be, I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I would say that I really think that firms should be thinking more and more about that model and taking advantage of exactly what Jeffrey mentioned, that wholesale pricing. I just think as the tools continue to get better and better, that may take the place of some things that your firm is being paid for today to do manually. And that may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get some of my data entry people displaced. What are we going to do from a revenue perspective? And that change is just coming, no matter how you feel about it or not. Like data entry manual jobs are going away, and that should be an opportunity. One opportunity to offset that one is the more you can become that advisor, that person who knows how to put the right tech stack together, it allows for some additional income opportunities for your practice by using that wholesale pricing to get them pricing that, again, would be what they'd have to pay on their own, but they're not having to navigate this complex ecosystem. So I think that we as practitioners should probably be looking to do more of that as firms, even if maybe historically you said, I don't want to get into that, I'll just let my client pay for that directly. Just think about that as an opportunity for revenue growth for your practice in the future.
You're 100% right, and that's well aligned with one of the recent assets or pieces of content that Xero has produced, the app advisory playbook, and we'll make sure to send that in the follow-up email as well, so you could take a look and see how app selection as well as app implementation could become a revenue-generating service at your practice. Great, thanks, Kenji. The next question is from Bill, and the question is, sorry, it just jumped real quick. It seems like there are new apps coming out every week. How do I, A, avoid app fatigue, and B, ensure the app will be around for a long time?
Yeah, I think those are great questions, Bill, and I think they're important ones, because I think that in the absence of having good answers to either one of those, we can easily as practices get very set and like, you know what, I just know this one, I'm going to stick with it, it's tried and true. And that's not bad to do at times, but I think that the pace of of change is happening so quickly in the accounting space that we have to be a little careful as practitioners not to get too set in our ways. But so I guess as those 2 points I'd mentioned, how to not get the fatigue. Again, I would lean and recommend people who have app marketplaces, and again, we'll use Xero since you guys do right here, that again, think about them as doing a little bit of legwork for us as practitioners. They've got teams who are there, who work with Brooks, who are going through and not everybody makes it into that process. They're running their own diligence process there. So think about the app ecosystems to make it a little easier and maybe not give you as much fatigue. I think also it's hard to instill this unless you genuinely feel it, but if you can cultivate a passion for the change, for the software, the tech that's coming in our space, I think that helps. Again, I'm a little bit, maybe a lot geeky in that way. I like seeing the new stuff. I like playing with new apps. And so maybe not everybody does feel that way, but maybe the more and more you talk and look at these apps to develop and cultivate a little bit more of that excitement for it. But maybe at least use some of the filtering mechanisms that like an app marketplace like Xero has there. And I think the second part of that question, remind me, Jeffrey was around.
How do you ensure that they're going to be there for a long time? Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a tougher. I guess there's a couple of different ways to that. You can certainly try to get a sense based on size and scale of the organization. More and more of these are coming out and raising capital. So we tend to work with a lot of venture capital, startup tech companies. So we'll do things like, either it's pretty easy. Actually, it's not difficult to figure out if they've been funded lately. So we like to use crunchbase.com. It's a great tool to go and research anybody who's raised capital. So maybe if you're a little worried that it's like the 2 guys and the dog in their garage and like, are they going to be able to support this? Take a look and see if you've seen any recent fundings for them. If it's kind of nothing, or oh my gosh, they just raised 10 million last month. Okay, cool. They're going to be around a little while. I think that's
Yeah.
one way. I think also just talking about to them about the roadmap. Hey, what's on your roadmap? What are you planning from the product? And if they don't have many good answers for like where the product roadmap's going, they maybe not have thought past, the next payroll next week. Be a little careful of that. And then that whole support mechanism, really push them on like what's going to happen when I need support. Does it sound like they have one? You're getting good kind of good vibes there. But yeah, I love that build because we've encountered some technology before. I absolutely, we've used some that the current product worked very well. We were nervous about the support function. Sure enough, the folks who were working on it decided to go a different direction on a different project, and then it became an unsupported project, and we had a tremendous hardship having to switch a whole bunch of clients off this now unsupported product that stopped working as an integrated tool set. So it's something to keep in mind. Try to just run them through a little bit of a diligence process about how much maybe cash flow they've got, how much cash flow you think they've got in the bank, and do they really have plans for support and product development in the future, and hopefully you'll come out in the right place.
Yeah,
I think the Crunchbase tip is such a great one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brooks, I didn't mean to jump in.
Crunchbase is huge. I think everything Kenji said on evaluating the market and what's behind the company. And then to help you guys out a little bit, Bill, we also look at reviews and ratings in our community. So if you go to the marketplace, you can always actually see if an app has a high number of 4 or 5 star reviews. A lot of customers are using that app. They've probably been around for longer. So that's a good way to quickly go in and check. And as they build more and more customers with us, they'll float higher up in the marketplace. So you can kind of evaluate from the top down there.
Yeah, and I'm going to put my hat in the ring a little bit for the 2 guys in a garage, or the 2 people in a garage. Xero and Hubdoc started once upon a time in a garage. So if you're a little bit more adventurous and you want to be a part of, the next big app and or general ledger in the ecosystem, we definitely encourage you to support the scaling startups.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Kenji. That was a great answer. So question from Drew. This one's a little bit more specific to your current tech stack. What systems are clients most asking for on the HR side? HRIS, performance tool, onboarding tool, engagement tool. Which one do you typically suggest and why?
We don't get too involved kind of on the HRIS side, but I would say that the ones that I think ones I hear our clients talking about, or we've seen or experienced with clients. We've seen a decent amount of one called Jazz lately, and that tends to be a little bit more from everything from managing through the interview process all the way to onboarding. I think they started initially around more of how do we go out and do recruiting and help there. Let's see who else I think is out there. We're seeing more and more happen with some of the payroll companies out there. I think Gusto is starting now offering integrated kind of HR solutions along with their payroll. I think that's been very smart too. Zenefits, likewise, as well, has been one that's been popular with some clients of ours that touch in that space. And I think what I've seen in common amongst just those quick examples off the top of my head were that each of them, I think, Zenefits, Gusto, Jazz to a little bit of a different degree, have tended to have a very simple interface where it's easy to set up a new employee and then have all those components of things like payroll and benefits and other insurance all managed kind of right there in one space. So take that with a little bit of grain of salt. I'm definitely not an expert in the space, but those are just some things I've seen out there that clients of ours have used. So
awesome. So the next question here is from Norman. How do you deal with apprehension to having your accounting records in the cloud with so many hackers out there? And I'm assuming most of your techs, well, actually you're 100% in the cloud. So this is a very apropos question for you.
Yeah, we're a little bit in a spot now to where we just will tell clients, listen, we are a cloud-based firm, and we recognize that there are some risks to it, and people worry about some of those issues. But we've just told clients that, hey, if you're not, if move forward with us as a provider or the tools that we like to use, we just started getting into like, hey, maybe we're not the right fit. I say that because I really would love to see everybody move to the cloud. But I've had too many experiences where I've tried to be like the sole cloud evangelist, like telling why it's less risk than it could be by losing that computer or desktop machine, or someone can hack that. And as passionate as I am about new technology and the fact of it being distributed and more safe in things like the cloud, regardless of things like hacking, I've just had to kind of be more clear with clients and our team about who we are and what are we going to do. And we believe that, like, listen, if you want to build a modern accounting function, you're going to have to focus on the modern new tools. Every tool is going to have its challenges. It may not always work well, may not always be the right fit for somebody, but we're going to have a very, very difficult time, if not impossible, building a modern accounting function on out-of-date tools. And so it stinks, but we've had those times where a client said, like, listen, I really want to continue on this desktop software. It works well for us. And I've said, you know what? That's great. I'm glad it works well for you. We're probably not the right provider. Can I maybe make a recommendation to some other firms we know that do that work? So I guess what I'm saying there in short is, if it doesn't mean you can't have a bit of both of them, but I think you should probably be on a path in one direction or the other. It's going to be difficult to divide up your team, your time about supporting a lot of different solutions, especially ones that we know are not going to integrate well and take advantage of what we talked about, building custom solutions. And so I just think that, for clarity for you and not making yourself crazy, and for your staff, you can probably pick one of those sides to go toward. Do I want to continue to focus on maybe a niche group that maybe is concerned about privacy and a bunch of other issues, and just focus on giving them the really secure, or whether their mind is very secure, different type of solution, versus I'm going to give them a modern, more efficient solution, and have to help them through that. It's a little bit more evangelical than it is practical, I would say, but I've been there too. And I've also known I've worn myself out at times trying to always be like, why am I still trying to convince this person to go to the cloud and all the, do I know all the security issues? I don't know all the security issues. AWS and Google has a better handle on that than I do. And if they can't get comfortable with that, me as the accounting practitioner just trying to help them out, I'm not sure I can get them there either. And so that may not be the best fit for you as a firm. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but
I think it's tremendously helpful, and it speaks to kind of this topic that is brought up time and time again at events, and practitioners continually discuss it. But it's all about picking the right clients for your practice, and I think what you just spoke to that concept quite elegantly, and I would agree with that answer as well. Having spoken to hundreds of practices, they tend to fall in line with that school of thought.
Yeah, I'll take, just to expand a little bit more on that. We've had much more success as a practice. I hope others on this webinar have too, by being really clear that we're going to be modern and forward thinking and cloud-based, and that we work closely with Hubdoc and with Xero. And what we found is that clients are like, oh, cool, you guys are out there trying to understand the direction of where businesses and tools are going, versus no, you guys are crazy trying to be these forward-thinking folks. We want you to be old school and dated. I think it speaks well to you as a firm when we've got close relationships with all these different app partners. To me, that shows some intentionality of you as a firm, as a practice, that we care about the new solutions that are coming. It doesn't mean they're all going to work, but if they don't, we're going to move on to the next one. But we're going to be a forward-thinking firm. And I know that's helped us benefit quite a bit by just positioning ourselves that way and being interested in bringing some of these new solutions to clients. So,
yeah, that's great. So I think that takes us to the end of the question and answer period. Kenji, thank you so much again for taking the time to provide the tips, the best practices, the advice. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, guys.
Thank you,
And
Kenji.
Brooks, thanks again to you for being a wonderful co-host as usual.
Yes, we appreciate Hubdoc hosting. So thanks for all.
Absolutely.
Before we jump off, we wanted to talk about a few special offers that we have for accounting and bookkeeping practices. First and foremost, as I mentioned previously, Hubdoc offers free accounts for accounting and bookkeeping practices, so that you can test it out for yourself, use it on your own books, use it to demo to your clients. It's as simple as visiting app.hubdoc.com/signup, put in your credentials, and you're off to the races. So highly recommend doing that. Probably a very useful tool as you evaluate tools and technology like Hubdoc. And then I'm going to pass the mic over to Brooks, who's going to be talking about how to become a Xero partner.
Yeah, so thank you all as well. As you can see, we also included the link at xero.com/marketplace/app/Hubdoc, where you can sign up for a free trial of Xero or a free partner membership on Xero. And that also includes links to integrate with Hubdoc if you do choose to do so. Just one thing I would say is we do certify all of our integrations with partners. So on the questions of security, they go through a rigorous security process. So you can always feel rest assured if you are using an integrated partner with Xero that your documents and security are under control. And yeah, feel free to head to the link you can see on the screen. If you are a partner, you would be assigned with an account manager that could help you set up your practice and get started on any needs you may have. So feel free to head there and reach out to us if you have any further questions.
Again, thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time out of your afternoon for joining us today. If you have any questions, reach out. Happy to support. Kenji, thanks again. Hope everyone has a great rest of their afternoon, and we'll talk soon.